Interpreters of Moby Dick have tended to focus their attention on Ishmael's speculations about the ideological, the economic, and the symbolic costs of the catastrophe he narrates. But this perspective has obscured, if it hasn't eclipsed, Ishmael's affecting witness to the historical trauma he underwent. Ishmael does indeed bear disinterested witness to the emergence and the triumph of an abstract, speculative, hyper-capitalized modernity. But his narrative also attests to the emergence from within global modernity's speculative culture of a testamentary discourse of the survivor. The novel dramatizes Melville's anxious fascination with the power of the imagination to construct both speculative and melancholic objects. The antagonism between the speculative and melancholic discourses that organize Melville's narrative could be described as a contest between different ways of investing in the spectacle of humanity itself. Claims of contract and finance capital on the one hand, and melancholy and testimony on the other. Whereas finance capital invests the social body in imaginary values, melancholic sentimentality trades in imaginative sympathy. In the opening pages of his narrative, Ishmael attributes his motive for going out to sea as his need to break out of the melancholic condition that he fears will eventuate in his suicide. Ishmael signs up as a crew member on board the Pequod to discharge what he calls his spleen by getting caught up in a delirium that promises to immerse him in a flood of intense experiences. Upon boarding the ship, Ishmael reinvests his melancholia in the speculative delirium, animating his very prose style. Ishmael's subjunctive style, filled as it is with perhapses, maybes, what-ifs, allows him to transform the things he perceives into the rhetoric through which he takes speculative possession of them. In the course of his narrative, he moves from one intellectual model to another, seizing hold of each, then investing each with the subjunctive power of his imagination. In so doing, he converts the facts of the world and all of the events in his life into a persuasive power capable of reckoning them as the money of his mind. After Ishmael topples into the abysmal space of Pip's abandonment at the novel's conclusion, however, Ishmael takes the place of Pip and the crew as the sole surviving mariner renegade castaway. Ishmael's testamentary witness to the shipwreck of the crew stands in agonistic relationship with his position as the disinterested observer who oversees the composition of the narrative's speculative fabulations. Moby Dick is not merely the testament of Ishmael's survivor. It is the very thing that makes his survival possible. Ishmael's testament does not take place in the past, to which he attests, nor in a future that would consider his testimony completed. Ishmael's narrative is witness-bearing and witness-engaging as his means of executing the claims that the past and the dead make on the present and the living. Ishmael's melancholic narrative assumes the occasion of its address. as its very foundation. When he begins his narrative, "Call me Ishmael," Ishmael calls back into existence that apocalyptic event that he now asks us to pass on.